Hello, welcome back. We are four struggling filmmakers. My name's Emma. Joined with me today, as always, is Noah.
Hi.
Jimmy.
Hello, chaps.
And James.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you guys all again. So, do we have recommendations for this week?
So I've got two. Last night I rewatched Spider-Man 2 for obvious reasons.
Oh.
It was really good.
What were the obvious reasons?
What Alfred Molina's back, isn't he?
For No Way Home, which the trailer is released for.
And I watched Do the Right Thing, and I thought it was really, really good. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, but it definitely is as good as people say it is.
Linking very nicely with that, I'd like to recommend Candyman, but I don't know if I should talk about it.
In very spoiler-free terms, because we were all supposed to see it together, weren't we, Jimmy?
Which we will see it together. All I'll say, though,
I need to see the first one.
The first one is very good.
It's on Netflix.
Thank you, Emma.
Do go and watch the first one before you see this. That's the first thing I'll say, because it is a sequel. It does follow up.
That makes sense.
Which I didn't realise. I thought it was completely different. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is fantastic in it. So is the rest of the cast, except for one guy, but I can't talk about it because it spoiled too much. No, really tense, really interestingly directed, new horror film, and it's got that Jordan Peele social commentary. Unlike Get Out, it feels a lot more relevant, a lot more necessary, less shoehorned in. It actually works. Fantastic film.
I completed the Pusher trilogy yesterday.
You what?
Yeah.
Say that again.
The Pusher trilogy. So they're the Nicholas Winding Refn films he did before he made his English speaking films. They're really good.
Do they get better?
I recommend them. They're pretty gritty and pretty dark, but yeah, they're really good.
Which is
I
best?
do recommend. I think the second one's considered the best.
Really?
With Mads Mikkelsen in. Well, he's in the first two, but he plays the lead role in the second.
So I do have something to recommend. I just remembered. So I don't know if you saw, but on the BBC for the last couple of weeks, their new drama
Vigil.
Vigil has been being advertised like, oh my god, the deeper you go, the more you know, or something like that.
The more submarines there are.
Yeah. And I watched the first episode last night, and it was actually quite good. What are we diving into this week?
I don't know, Emma.
We're going to now jump back in time to last week's episode, the end of last week's episode, and we span a wheel to decide who is going to recommend a film for who. So jump back to that.
Couldn't have put it better myself.
We're back.
Welcome
We're transported back in time to last week's episode, and we're going to pick a film for each person. So
for the second week in a row, spin the wheel.
Spin the wheel.
Spin that wheel. Who am I getting to pick a film for? It is
me.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
I trust James.
Yeah. All right. Sure.
So Noah, you are picking for. Shall we see?
Let's find out. Who is Noah picking for?
I kind of want to have Noah. I feel like we agree on a lot.
Oh, dangerous pick that.
I am picking for.
Hey!
Oh wait, it's going on Jimmy! Yay!
I'm picking for Jimmy.
He's picking for Jimmy. That's what a random chance, eh?
And that means Jimmy is picking for.
Oh, I wonder who.
It's not Samja again, is it? It's Samja.
It's Samaj. Picking for me, Jimmy. Pick a good one, please.
And we're back. So that was our. Now you know who's picking for who. But what did we think of each other's picks? So let's start with myself. I picked for Jimmy, and Jimmy, I picked the Danish Girl for you. Jimmy, you picked for.
I picked for, God knows if he's there on your screen, James. That's where he is on my screen.
Yeah.
And what did I pick for you, James? It's to do with his background.
You picked the 1954 film Them!
Exclamation mark. Which stands for.
What?
Which stands for.
Them big ants.
Oh, that's it. No,
Yeah.
you couldn't possibly know the answer to that. On the theatrical trailer for the film, which I've seen probably about 30 times, it comes up on the screen and goes terror, horror, excitement, mystery.
Ooh, them.
That was brilliant. James, you picked 4.
I picked for no bags, and I gave him Amelie.
Oui, oui.
That's one
Even though
friend.
that's Italian, but
Yeah.
oui,
Yeah, you made an attempt.
oui, oui. Oh,
And Noah, you picked 4.
I picked for Mrs. Pullen down there.
I'm over here.
Mrs.
Over
Bullock,
there,
that's
maybe,
Emma's
I don't
mum.
know.
We'll figure out where we go.
And I picked the 1981 cult horror classic Possession,
Yeah, you did.
Which you decided to
which
watch
I
with your
believe
parents.
Emma watched with her family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll introduce the best I can. Them. It's a film from 1954 about big ants.
Is
There
that
you go.
it?
That's it.
What more do you want?
That's the best I could do. Right. There's a big desert where they're doing atomic bombs.
Where is it?
Loads of testing. And it's in one of the American states.
New Mexico.
It is.
No,
New Mexico.
it is. Yeah, there you go. And there's a little girl walking through there, and then she gets picked up by some police, and she's all like catatonic, basically, because she's seen something scary. And then the police are going to find out what it is. And then the first 20 minutes of the film, you've got these 2 police officers going around the desert and finding some mysterious crime scenes about stuff being torn apart and dead bodies and sugar everywhere.
But
And you're like,
James, this wasn't torn out. No.
it was torn through, so it was going in.
Yeah, it was caved.
Outwards.
This wasn't caved out.
Yeah.
This was caved in.
Yeah, and obviously that would be such a good mystery if the poster and the trailer and everything else doesn't show the fact that it's about big ants.
You wouldn't have known that in 1954.
Surely they would have known that in 1954.
It
How
would
do
have
you
been
not sell a film about big ants on the fact that
No,
it's about
'cause
massive ants?
It would have been the B picture, so you would have turned up not giving a crap about what it was. You would just know its title. You'd be waiting for your main film, and this amazing bit of cinema would play.
There's dead bodies, and then you figure out what's been causing it. So they get the specialists in who are very coy about what's actually going on. Like, they definitely won't even say it. It's like, is it big ants? It's like, we're not going to say. We're not going to say it's big ants until they turn up. And then a big ant turns up, and it's, for 1954, it's a pretty impressive. It's a pretty impressive animatronic.
It looks bloody amazing.
Yeah, it looks really, really good. And then they find the big ant hill, and then they're like, we gotta kill them all, because then they'll extinct humanity and all that. And so they blow it up with bazookas, basically.
Yeah.
When they go out, smoke them out, and then they're like, oh no, there's eggs, and now the queens are going all over the world.
Burn it all.
And they go and burn them all. And then the rest of the film is basically about trying to find out where the ants are and killing them off.
Did you see how much aliens bit off them for the going into the nest scene? That whole going to the nest scene with the flamethrowers and stuff, that is the bit in Aliens when they go into the hive.
Yeah, I can definitely see that there's similarities there. I mean, flamethrowers, eggs, big evil, monsters.
How did the people in the village and whatnot miss this gigantic ant's nest?
Well, this is all explained, you see.
It is explained, actually. So they only come out at night, and it's in a desert, it's always like sandy, so you can't really see what's going on, and you have these weird like noises and stuff that goes.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. So they can't come out in the day, basically, because it's too hot in the desert.
And they've only appeared recently. Why, James?
I don't know why, Jimmy.
Because of the atomic testing in the New Mexico region.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's very important, because halfway through the film, the scientist is like, now I'm going to show you a documentary about ants for about 5 minutes.
Now I'm going to explain the plot of the film. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally like, these are how ants work, and these are how ants work together. And it's just like a mini documentary in the middle of the film.
I could tell you bits of that word for word. I don't think it was, ants don't see very well at all. That's why they use the antenna. Which is a very important plot point, because when they first appear, it's like, get the antenna! Get the antenna!
And then he's like, get the other antenna!
He's helpless without them!
But yeah, enough about the plot. Like, I don't want to reveal too much about all these big ants and the happenings. You can go watch it yourself. But now we're getting into my opinions of the film. Jimmy, why did you want me to watch them?
I think I had a similar strategy when picking to what the rest of us had, which is let's pick something that you would never ever pick up of your own accord. So I think I gave you a choice between them and Magic from 1977 by
Anthony
Richard Attenborough.
Hopkins.
Yeah, which is also a very good film, possibly slightly better than this, but I love them. No, I grew up with them. It's the first science fiction film to have giant bugs, which started the massive trend in the 1950s. Came out the same year as Godzilla, so it was a big landmark era for radiation making things big. I think it's very of the time. There's a lot in there to do with the fear of communism and science and this new atomic age we're in. I find it one of the most entertaining films ever made. I think the action sequences are stunning. I like the actors. The fact that they were all actually soldiers in World War II gives it some authenticity. It was one of the biggest budget science fiction films of the era. Annoyingly, it had its budget slashed just before they started filming. I don't know if you noticed, James. The opening title comes up in red and blue.
I don't know if I remember that. Was it because it was supposed to be in 3D by any chance?
It was supposed to be in 3D and in color. And then I'm glad it wasn't in 3D, but at the last minute they're like, nah, this doesn't need to be in color. I'm usually against colorization. I'd love to see a colorized version of this.
I think the black and white actually works for it.
It does give it that film noir, which certainly for the first 30 minutes, well, like I say, you've seen the poster, so you know what's happening. But when you don't have a clue what's going on, I think it's an amazing screenplay. There's lots of twists and turns. I love everything about it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I get the feeling, and not just because I saw his letterbox review, that James wasn't as keen as Jimmy.
Yeah,
Well,
do tell us your opinion, James.
So obviously Jimmy was telling me before we recorded he's seen this film a lot, and this was my first time watching this kind of film. I thought it was all right. That is about where the buck stops with it. It has a very good opening section. I think where Jimmy said was the ant coming over the hill. Up until that point, everything there is really, really good. I love the mystery angle about it. I love the big reveal of the ant. The animatronics are great. That action burst at the end is great as well. And then for me, it kind of just dwindles a little bit. There's like a massive slump in the middle where it's basically police investigations. Like, where are the ants now? And what are ants? And what do they do? And it didn't really hook me that much. It was very, one note and just trying to find out where the ants are without, the excitement of knowing, like, oh, we can go in the ants. Like, I thought personally, where this film is going is, oh, we found the nest. Now we go in the nest and then we kill all the ants. And then you've got like a tense thing about going around the nest and not knowing what's around every corner. I think that would be pretty cool. And they kind of do that at the end, which is where at the end it does kind of go up a bit, even though the ending itself is good, but it's a bit abrupt.
So, yeah, suddenly we're in California, presumably because the desert budget ran out. And it just, it's suddenly in the last 20 minutes, it becomes the hunt for these kids, which I do like, but you're right, it is out of nowhere. You clearly weren't drawn in by the romantic subplot.
Was there a romantic subplot? I was expecting there to be one, but it was like, it's the daughter of the scientist guy.
What's her name? Come on.
I can't remember, Jimmy.
It's Doctors Medford and Medford. I think she's Jill Medford.
Jill Medford, right. So Jill Medford meets up with one of the was it the FBI guy?
The FBI, James Arness, yeah.
Yeah, so and you kind of see like, well, they might have a thing going, but it's never explicitly, it doesn't go anywhere.
Well, she gets off the plane and it's one of my favourite lines. It's so bad in the film where, because she's a biologist, they both are. She gets off the plane and the FBI guy turns around to the police officer and goes, if she was the kind of doctor that looked after people, I'd get a fever real quick. It's really bad. When she's getting off the plane, her dress gets stuck on the thing, doesn't it? It's bad. And the FBI guy and the police officer see a bit of leg and they're like, ooh. Yeah.
Some of that 1950s leg.
But she's a really strong female character.
I mean,
particularly for the 1950s. She's telling the men what to do in that film.
Yeah, I
Ooh.
can kind of understand that.
When
now.
they're in the
They-
nest, she's like,
Enough.
they're like, "What do we do now?" She's like, "Burn it all," and they're like, "What? Burn it!" Yeah, it's cool.
that kind of just rounds up my thoughts about them. Like it's a decent B movie from the 50s that is not that long. It's just about 80 minutes, isn't it? It's not like
It's super fast.
it's super short, flies by all right, even though in the middle is a bit, it drags a tiny bit. Out of 5, guys, I'll give it a 2.5, which for me is a 5 out of 10.
Should we
Emma, take it away.
with possession?
Possession.
So
We might have spoilers here, James. I don't know.
That's all right. Don't worry.
I've not
I
seen
think
either.
before I even dive into the film, why did you want me to watch this?
Yeah.
You would never watch something like this, I don't think, voluntarily. So I think, again, just thought I'd give you something that's a bit maybe out of the comfort zone, maybe something you wouldn't pick on a Friday night. Well, no one would pick this on a Friday night, but
Now, this is a Saturday night after a few pints, Joe.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, just something different. You're a bit a European art house.
Yeah, Possession, 1981.
Yeah.
The film is classified as a psychological horror drama. Stars a very, very young Sam Neill,
A little baby face.
and Isabel Adjani in her award-winning role of Anna, but she also plays another character. Is it Helena,
isn't it?
Helena, yeah. So the plot of the film follows the relationship.
Oh, Helen. Yeah, sorry.
The relationship breakdown between Anna and Mark, including their like little weird story arc of Anna's lover Hendrik, and Mark and Hendrik have some strange encounters throughout the film. It's a German and French co-production and is directed by the Polish director Andrzej Zulawski. I tried.
That's all right.
which is shown through the film has like a massive mix of accents which don't necessarily always fit with the West Berlin backdrop, but I'll dive into that a bit later on. The film clearly has a lot of layers, and in order to enjoy this film you need to take it at more than face value and look at the deeper layers underneath the film, because at face value it's bizarre and wacky with lots of screaming involved. We have Mark. Anna's cheating on Mark with Hendrik. Anna asks for a divorce. Mark's like, okay. He leaves the house and they have a child called Bob, which is the true crime of this film. And then Bob is left with Anna. Mark comes back a few days later after going on the boozer and finds Bob is like not being cared about at all, and Anna's gone haywire. So he's like kicks Anna out of the house and takes custody of Bob. While he's taking custody of Bob, he meets Bob's teacher, Helena. Is like, oh my God, you look just like my wife. And then something happens between those two. Anna's off with Hendrik, and then, for example, for some reason, Mark and Hendrik's mum talk on the phone a lot, which is bizarre. Anna has a spare apartment near the wall in Berlin, which is supposed to represent like East Berlin. And then the newer apartment that Mark lives in is West Berlin. And Mark hires an investigator to investigate what's going on with Anna, because she's basically like gone missing and like whatever. And the the detective is the worst detective I've ever seen in my life. Like, he spends the entire day literally running behind her, like not even like afar, like literally just running behind her. Goes in the house like, oh, I'm here to look at your windows. She's like, no. And he's like, no, I am here to look at your windows. Like, I am. And she's like, fine. And then he's like, oh, I need to see the windows in the bathroom. She's like, we haven't got windows in the bathroom. He's like, nah, you do. He goes in, and that's when this whole mystery starts to unravel.
Is that when the possession takes hold? Why is it called possession?
That's a very good question. Why is it called Possession? I I think it's to do with I don't think they're necessarily possessed in the normal like terms of, if you think of like The Exorcist and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's more of like an obsession of this thing, and they're possessed by their own relationship breakdown, I guess.
Got ya.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Talk about the squid monster.
I wouldn't call, well, it's this creature, isn't it? Well,
Yeah.
actually, in the opening credits, it does say like who it's created by. It says like creature created by somebody. And if you didn't have any clue what was going on, you'd be like, hang on, creature, what's going to happen in this film? There is actually a kind of like a bit of gay undertones between Heinrich and Mark as well.
Oh, of course, 100% there is. Yeah, Heinrich is
Which
in love with
I
Mark,
think it just I don't know, maybe it's just because they wanted to throw as much like sexual and like sexualness into this film as possible, maybe.
Yeah.
And everybody loves everyone wants to fuck everyone, sort of thing. But anyway.
Yeah.
How does it end?
With a massive police shootout.
Oh,
yeah. Well,
I don't want to give away the big thing.
fine.
Okay, well, you've got Mark's a spy as well. Remember?
Oh, yeah, Mark is.
Yeah. Why does he need a private investigator if he is himself a spy?
Yeah, but that's you can't.
Yeah, there's so many flaws. It was funny because when
don't think too much. Come on.
When Mark opens the fridge and it's like the investigator's head's in the fridge, there's like flies buzzing around. But my mum made a comment. She was like, "It doesn't sound like flies. It sounds like there's a mini orchestra in the front." Yeah, it's a really bizarre film. There's a miscarriage scene.
You didn't hate it, did you, Emma?
No, I didn't hate it at all. Like, it's definitely an art house film, and as I said in the introduction, you can't take it on face value, because on face value it's literally just some woman screaming, running around a subway and cutting herself with a beef knife. And
a beef knife?
Yeah,
it's pretty. It's like body horror, isn't it? But very extreme, even more extreme than like a Cronenberg.
There are some wacky scenes. They get the wacky scenes, like for example when the teacher Helena comes round to be like, "Oh, here's your son's school report" or something, and then he's like, "Oh, do you mind just bathing my son and putting him to bed?" And she was like, "Yeah, no, that's chill."
We don't really know what the creature is either. We don't know if it's part of her head, part of Mark's head, part of their consciousness.
And like the creature morphs as well throughout the film. So as time's going on, it's changing to the environment and things like that.
So I was reading up on this, and then poor Isabella Gianni, she suffered terribly after this film with hysteria for many years. There was rumours she tried to commit suicide because it just took such an emotional toll out of her. And Sam Neill said it was just completely like the hardest film he's ever had to do, because they're both just like such an exhausting and intoxicating film.
Didn't Sam Neill said he wouldn't speak about it until the director died?
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think I might have read that somewhere. I think the director.
He died a few years back.
Yeah, so I think he's only just started talking about it now. And he's like that. He doesn't have good things to say about it.
But their performances are really good though. Like there's a bit in it where Sam Neill just looks completely demented, like completely pale. And
when he's on the rocking chair, just like,
yeah. Oh my god.
This is one of two 1981 European horror films with a child called Bob in it.
And what's the other one?
Lucio Fulci's The House by the Cemetery.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe that's the horror in itself.
Which is also set in Germany.
I was scared to bring this up, but it's a film set in the 80s, Berlin, about some creepy body horror stuff. Kind of sounds like the remake of Suspiria. I don't know, maybe.
Oh yeah, well you can't.
No, I don't think.
I'm not saying it's the same kind of film, but I just saw that comparison.
I don't think that this film is like any other film.
That's a good thing to say.
Bizarre by itself, and there's
not a coven of witches.
There's not a coven of witches.
I think the director himself, Zalewski, said he had a divorce at some point, and so he took a lot of the ideas.
It sounds like that's what the film's about.
Yeah, no, it is. It is about the main plot.
It's fundamentally about a broken marriage. If you're just going to dumb it down into like one line about what it's about. And there is a story the director said about, do you remember when Bob gets left on his own for like a night or like a day or something? And apparently the director said that happened with his son. Like his wife just left the kid on his own during their like breakup and just to fend for himself. And you're like, bloody hell. Oh, that's pretty dark.
Okay.
Did you like the subway scene? I'm sure that went down really well with your family.
My mum was like, is this like where the possession takes hold? Like, is there something inside her?
Yeah, you could definitely say that. They only did 2 takes. The fact that they did more than one is quite funny, but
I don't even think. I was just thinking that whole scene. I was like, they must have had to put letters through everyone's doors in like a 5-mile radius because.
Well, yeah, they filmed it at like 5 a.m. apparently and closed the whole subway. So
just like it went on a bit longer than I think it needed to.
Yeah, well, that's probably it probably has the perfect length really for it to have its effect.
Nah, mate. Like,
if it made you uncomfortable, then it's done its job.
True. I can understand why you picked it. I thought it was an interesting dive into European cinema. I'm not like against horror. I'm quite a big fan of horror. But it wasn't like any horror film I'd ever seen before. So
sticks in your head, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it was awful. I don't think it was bad. I think for what it is, and if you look at the different layers, I think 3 out of 5.
All right, yeah. So it wasn't a disaster me picking it then. I thought it might have been a 1, 2. So I'm chuffed myself.
Be interested to see what the highest and lowest scores are for the day. Currently, we're pretty similar between James and Emma.
From one European country to another. Oh, smooth. We now go to Le France. And we go to 2001, turn of the century. James kindly picked a film, this film called AMELIE, which, it's French, 2001. It's a film directed by a guy called Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
Jeunet, yeah, I think.
Yeah, should I say that? It is a film about a girl called AMELIE.
I'm deeply shocked.
Yes, played by Audrey Tautou,
something like that.
Yeah, set in the capital city, Paris, and it is a simple. Simple. Is that fair enough, James? Simple story.
Yeah, it's very straightforward.
Character study about AMELIE, and it's about her just starting to do good things for people. She realizes that she's quite good at making people happy in a way. Some of these things include sort of matchmaking. She the first thing she does actually, she finds sort of like a childhood treasure in a Parisian apartment, like underneath the kitchen, sort of like
she drops
skirting
like a
board
perfume thing, and then the tile goes back, and then she finds a little box of like childhood trinkets and stuff.
Yeah, and she wants to return it really, and that's how it happens. Is they mention randomly that Princess Diana has just died in that car crash in Paris, and then I think she reacts like something, and she drops something, and then the thing she drops pops open the skirting board. Quite a quirky comedic film, isn't it? And I think
I mean it has like a sense, like I'll get into it a little bit, but it has a sense of innocence to it whilst not shying away from topics that aren't as innocent. Like there's a lot of sex in this film, there's a lot of dark concepts that done with like a fair bit of humor. Like the death of her mum is quite funny.
Oh god, yeah. So that's during the introduction where we just get a bit of context on her and her mum and her father, and her mother dies in like the first 5 minutes, where somebody jumps off a church and just lands on top of her.
Yeah, it was like
she dies.
Canadian woman who wanted to commit suicide. She just lands on her mum.
Yeah,
very Bruges.
Yeah, that sort of sets it up perfect, really, for what the sort of style and sort of tone this film's going for. I guess it's very French, isn't it?
Yeah, very French.
It's the most French you can possibly be without being French in a way. Yeah, so she's a matchmaker. She helps out I can't remember her name, but she works at the cafe with her, and she's a bit ill.
Yeah, she's a hypochondriac, isn't she?
And there's this really creepy guy who keeps stalking his ex, who also happens to be at the cafe, but she's like, do you realize that you keep staring at each other between this ill lady and this creepy ex? And they're like, oh. And then it leads to a moment where they go out back in the cafe and have there's a funny sex scene in it where you don't see
start fucking and everything just starts shaking.
yeah, the whole room starts shaking, and it's like everyone's like, what? She helps out one of her neighbours who can't really move. I think he's got some sort of brittle bone disease.
Yeah, he's got brittle bone. He's got covers and like cushions on everything, so it's very good. And he's a painter, isn't he?
He's got that magnificent piece of artwork in his house that he's doing. He's got that random video of that watch zoomed in on the time. Do you remember?
Yeah, that's a bit strange, isn't it?
Yeah. So you got him, and she tries to sort of help him out. And you've got so there's this really horrible guy that works at the local fruit stand. I can't remember his name again.
I can't remember his name either, but
he's a really horrible piece of work. He's really mean to this nice guy who works there called Lucian. I remember Lucian, and she's got a soft spot for Lucian because he's a really nice guy, and he's just trying to do his job, and he's getting bullied by this man. So then she just causes absolute chaos for this nasty man. Like, she breaks into his home and like moves things around. She like puts some sort of acid into his toothpaste. She just
I think it's like foot cream, and they swap it around.
Oh, okay, something like that. I remember something else as well.
Go on.
She steals the garden gnome from her father.
Oh, the gnome! Oh, the gnome is so good.
Because he's never been outside of France, is that right?
Yeah, I think it's her dad, basically, after her mum died, came a bit closed in, and he's just like sort of stuck in his house doing garden work, and like makes a little shrine to the ashes of his dead wife and puts a little gnome on top. He was like, oh, she never liked this gnome, but I'm going to put it on top of a shrine. And then AMELIE one night's like, you know what? I'm going to take the gnome and give it to someone. And basically they take the gnome around the world to different landmarks, and then they send pictures back to the dad. Like, where did the gnome go? Oh, look, he's in Russia.
Is there a plot to this film?
Yes, bear with, we're getting there.
There's a love plot.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a rom-com, basically. If you boil it down to its bare essentials, that's what it's about.
But I was building up to it because she's doing all these things for other people, and then she meets him quite early on in the film.
Yeah.
It's called Nino, and he's also a bit of a strange sort of quirky character, and she ends up sort of like she falls in love with him, and she plays like this weird sort of cat and mouse game with him, which goes on for quite a while, and where she will elaborately leave clues and all sorts to who her identity is. And it ends in that tourist spot, which again I've forgotten, Basilica, the big church, where it's got the amazing views, where I had €30 taken off of me. The film sort of has this amazing sort of bit at the end at the Basilica, the sacred church in Paris, where he has to go up the stairs and look through the telescope and see her there, and it's like it keeps going and going. It just basically ends. It has a happy ending, of course, and they ride off on a motorbike through the streets of Paris. But yeah, so that's the plot. We went on a bit for ages there, but yeah, I like this film. I think James picked it because it's probably not something I would voluntarily go for. I've heard of this film, and I've heard it's a lot of praise, so I might have watched it one day. But yeah, it's really good. It's got it's quirky. It's very Wes Anderson-like in its style and approach.
It's very, very whimsical, isn't it?
And it's tongue-in-cheek. It's funny. It also has kind of like adult humor, which is good fun, but it's not too like dark or anything like that. It's just a good fun film.
I watched this film for the first time ever. It was a while ago now, but I watched it with my mum. And I didn't expect my mum to sit down and watch a French film with me, but she did, and we both ended up really enjoying it. And I think filmmaking in it's really good. The characters are great. I love the style of it all. It's just really well done. It's basically a film about enjoying the little things in life.
I tend to rate films, but if I had to, it would be I'd be a 4.
Ooh.
4?
Yeah, I don't do half stars, do I?
Nah, you don't. I mean, that 4 is definitely a good rating to give it. I think I gave it like a 4.5, so which is a 9 out of 10.
So does
Come on,
that mean
James
that we
Bennett.
are moving on to a Danish girl?
Oh, we're moving on to another foreign film. Danish. It's obviously not, is it?
Yeah, I was going to say it's Tom.
It's got Eddie Redmayne in it, isn't
Eddie
it?
Redmayne. I was thinking the other day, what happened to Eddie Redmayne? What's he done
Still
recently?
about. He's still about.
He's doing Fantastic Beasts at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah,
Is he-
Fantastic
But
Beasts.
like, when was the last
to get a
one?
payday. 2016, I'd say.
So we are now moving into our final segment, which is my pick, the Danish girl, for Jimmy.
For
It's a
me.
Danish girl.
Sorry.
Who said that?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Danish
It was
girl.
great, didn't
Yeah.
it?
The Danish girl.
Danish girl. I remember when this came out in cinema a few years ago. Tom Hooper directed, Alicia Vikander. Sorry, I always get that wrong. Vikander, and Eddie Redmayne as Ina and Gerda Bendiger, who are two struggling Danish artists, although Ina is struggling far less than Gerda. Also stars Amber Heard as the best friend of these two. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And accents are
Cancelled.
out the window in this film, so Alicia Vikander sounds English with a hint of Swedish.
Well, she does have an English accent anyway, really, doesn't she?
Yeah, with a hint of Swedish, which is
Mm.
precisely what I just said. And it tells this story about. You're probably wondering, who's the Danish girl, right? I've seen her on the poster. That's Eddie Redmayne. Basically, this is a true story. Ina Vendiger. Basically, sometimes Ina would have to model for Gerda's pictures because Gerda did a lot of portraits, and sometimes she couldn't get a female stand-in to do the live modeling, and so occasionally she'd dress up Ina as a varman and paint him
Them.
them, and Ina really liked this. He liked dressing up as a woman, and at some point he has a sort of awakening and realizes that he is not a he, that he is a she born in the wrong body. The film deals with Ina having to deal with this, and this causes obviously a bit of friction in the relationship between the two. Basically, Gerda supports him, and they try and work out what they're going to do. And this is, I think, turn of the 19th century. No, turn of the 20th century, isn't it? It's early 1900s in Denmark. So there's quite a bit of pushback. They go and see all these experts, and they're like, "Oh, you're insane. You're gay. You're, you know." They put all these labels, and he's like, "No, I'm not. I was born the wrong gender."
Mm.
And so he has a lot of pushback from that, basically, and he gets beaten up at one point. But eventually, Ina accepts that he is in fact Lily, and eventually they do find a doctor who's willing to do what is like the first ever, or certainly one of them, gender reassignment surgeries. And so it's two surgeries. The first one removes LPP, and the second one creates L-Vagigi. First one goes all right, and Lily feels very happy. She finally feels like she is who she's meant to be. Unfortunately, the second one goes very badly. It doesn't go right, and Lily gets very ill, and Lily dies. And then the film kind of ends with this ode to Lily, because they had this scarf that she used to wear quite a lot, and they're going to spread her ashes, I think.
Yeah.
And then the scarf starts blowing away, and it blows away, and it's like the spirit of Lily will live on. And thrown into the midst, there's almost like a love triangle. When Ina was a boy, he had a friend. What's the friend called?
Oh,
I want to say Bob again, but it's definitely not.
it's not Bob. It's the childhood friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is Hans. Is it Hans?
Hans, yeah, nothing like Bob. Yeah, Hans, played by Matthias Schoenis, something like that. Another, an actually Danish actor, I think, Danish. And yeah, Ina had a kiss with him when he was young. But it's just basically this story about Ina coming to accept who she really is, which is Lily.
Yeah, and also the exploration of how it affects everyone else around that person.
Yeah, it's a lot about how Gerda has to sort of deal with this massive upheaval, and Ina still loves her. It's just obviously it does change the relationship quite a bit. It was a good pick for me. Definitely not something I would have watched myself ever. I remember when it came out and I saw the poster and I was like, yeah, not my kind of thing, you know. The story is quite powerful. There's a lot going on there. I find Eddie Redmayne incredibly boring as an actor. Yeah, he's got this emotionally vulnerable side. I find a lot of his line delivery very flat, but he was nominated an Oscar, so what the hell do I know? They seem to take any opportunity to get Alicia Vikander naked as possible, which I really wasn't sure was necessary throughout the film, but I guess they do get Eddie Redmayne naked too. You do see.
I think that is to like explore. It's like the exploration of like the body.
It's quite a frank exploration of exactly that, to be fair. I don't know. I didn't know whether she needed to be naked quite so much. It's a powerful story for the right audience, I think. Yeah, no, the production value was really good. You know, the costumes seemed appropriate. I wasn't massively gripped by the story, I must admit. I think I'm totally the wrong audience for it. Seeing Amber Heard cropping up in something these days is good.
I kind of want to bring something up about this movie. Like, I haven't seen it. From what I kind of understood about it and the way it was portrayed, it felt very Oscar baity in a way that kind of felt a bit disingenuous. Like, especially when you get like, obviously, it's a Tom Hooper directed film, and he's been nominated for King's Speech, and it's starring Eddie Redmayne, and he was in Theory of Everything, and he won an Oscar for that. Alicia Vikander was nominated for something else, and
she won. I think she won Best Supporting Actress for this.
Yeah. Oh, did what for this? Oh,
she.
I'm on my research.
She was definitely nominated beforehand for something else, is what I'm getting at. And then I think there was controversy about Eddie Redmayne playing a trans character.
Yeah. So. But I was going to dive into that. Basically, one of the reasons I picked the film, so originally I was going to make you watch Coco because I wanted you to see an animation, but you'd already seen it and loved it. So I was like, well.
Which kind of crumbles Jimmy's argument about not liking animation.
Yeah,
I like 3D animation, it's 2D animation.
But the main controversy was whether Eddie Redmayne should have played the role over a potentially trans, because Eddie Redmayne is pretty sure he's said he's like straight, and
he's a straight white man.
Boy.
And here in a 2018 GQ interview, Redmayne even admitted that he was unsure whether he should have taken the role.
I've heard this.
So yeah, it was the cisgender actor in a transgender role, and I wanted you to watch the film, and I wanted to hear your opinion on the casting and the subject matter as a whole. Obviously, none of us here are can speak on the transgender part, because
we are four of the straightest, whitest people on the planet. That's correct.
Yeah,
but we're in a generation where we are more open than previous generations to this kind of thing,
and we can have these discussions. And whilst none of us would claim to understand any of the struggles, I think it's important that, as Noah said, as we are straight white people, do we have a voice, and do we agree with what was done?
And I don't think I have a problem with Eddie Redmayne portraying this role. He does bring a sensitivity to it. It's not, there's nothing untoward towards his performance. Yes, are you representing the right people with the right people? It's hard to say.
You can also then make the argument, in the Theory of Everything, should that have been somebody with a disability in that role?
Well, 100%. But
or Eddie Redmayne. Should this be done by a French person?
Well, there you go. But it's good that the film did get made, and for people who are going through the same sort of struggle that I know Lily did, this is probably quite an uplifting film. And it shows that you're not alone and that sort of thing, which is quite nice. It almost feels like a classic Hollywood film in terms of its stage. Tom Hooper has this very sort of undynamic, static style, I would say, which I think generally works with what he's doing. In terms of, he's just showing what he's showing. He's not trying to show it in any skewed light. He's trying to show things flat, I feel. It's a really hard film to rate because I can't say it's bad. It's not a bad film in the slightest. And it's so outside of what I would usually watch. It's hard to see how I feel about it, really.
Mm.
Because it is well staged, it's well acted. I felt the
Can you
same way
believe
about
it, Emma? Emma, you've managed to make Jimmy not talk about a film.
No, I'm not. Oh, it's like I come away feeling the same way I felt about Carol, which I thought
Oh,
felt like quite a similar film. I'm like, yeah, it's good, but this, it's hard to relate to the story
No, of course.
when you're so far removed from the situation, as it were. I do feel it plays it very safe as well. It doesn't explore. It doesn't explore particularly deep. It's like once Ina says to Gerda, I'm I'm born with the wrong gender. There's not a massive amount of pushback on that from anyone. I feel like it's obviously based on a true story, and I've heard that one of the reviews I read said it makes it far less complicated than the situation actually was.
Yeah.
But there's lots of apparently there's medical reports that say that Ina might have actually been born with ovaries and a penis. So there's obviously a lot going on there on the physical level, which this film completely ignores. It just goes on the emotional.
Yeah. I do think that it is very careful in how it, and I think that's because of the simple fact that the director hasn't gone through this. So like
Exactly.
there is a social expectation of what you can and can't do. So maybe it wasn't the actor that was the issue, maybe it was who's telling the story, because it doesn't really go very deep into the issue. It sort of steps around it.
It's not a bad film. I don't know. I'd be tempted to give it probably 2.5 stars again. Like, there's nothing bad about it, but the story doesn't grip me. But it's not made for me. It's very interesting. I would never have seen this film without it being recommended. So that's good. It's broadened my horizons. It's pushed my boats out.
If like any of the audience has a film they think that would be something we've never seen, maybe they suggest it and we can do a little review of that. But
Yeah.
I think overall pretty successful recommendations, and I think everyone watched something that they would have been like probably haven't picked up or in a while or wouldn't have necessarily seen in the past week or so.
Defined.
Yeah, I think everyone enjoyed it, their films as well. There was no disasters.
Well, there was no complete negative experience with any of them, I don't think.
Yeah, we hope you've enjoyed it, and go ahead and watch these films at your, obviously with possession, at your own discretion. But yeah, have a watch and see what you would have thought about them if they're in your comfort zone or out your comfort zone. But on that note, we've been 4 Struggling Filmmakers, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
What's happened to my? I look all
Hey,
weird.
sorry, I'm gonna have to stop because Nova's struggling.
I look really pale.
Because you are pale.
I'm so pale.
Go get some sun.
I'm all alone. I'm just here by myself.